This video is about distinguishing gravity from alienated gravity. If you've seen the videos before, you might want to look at them after this, but essentially alienated gravity is the path of life, and gravity, which is almost 99.999 etc 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 percent of the known universe as we know it, is the path of pure gravity, which is just basically like a boiling cauldron, a fractal repetition of the same principle. So my point here is that it is not possible to understand life properly unless you understand this difference between the two, pure gravity and alienated gravity. You have to understand this completely in order to understand what life is, because life is not just DNA. Life is a process that began at the moment the universe was created with the first hydrogen atom, because it's part of the species of atoms in the cosmic Serengeti. Although there is a difference, the motive remains singular. That's actually very important, so please take a moment and think about it, see if you agree with me. Although alienated gravity is completely different as a process, as you will see in a minute, the motive for it is still gravitational, because it's still the electronic slope. These things happen, atoms form molecules, then molecules form compounds, entirely because of this electronic slope and because of predation, relative predation of one to another. And so the motive remains gravitational, but the process or the mechanisms are completely different. I put here Nietzsche because I have no idea how he could have known this. His insight is quite frightening. He didn't know the details of this because there was no quantum physics. Physics was not where we are now, but what he actually sees, when we discuss later, you'll see when I discuss the morals, the moral code of evolution, and Nietzsche comes into it, it's quite frightening how the will to power, what Nietzsche singles out as a dominant force in the universe, and that everything strives to it, it is quite amazing how we could have seen this. And so the motive is gravity, just bear that in mind, we'll see it later. But in this particular case, and that also is the key to Darwin's moral code. Experts reject the idea. Most experts keep going on about the fact that Darwinian evolution is morally neutral, which is unbelievable if you really think about it, because where did it come from? You must be a creationist if you do not believe that our thoughts are a product, a direct result of our evolution. So in that respect it doesn't make sense, but also it is the only moral code that could be considered to be truly universal, because as you'll see, everything must follow this path of alienation, and it's the only other path other than gravity. I believe these people are wrong, because as I just explained, there is a moral code, and you'll see why that is. So let's see what. Evolution is all there is, because the other path, unless you are a creationist, and human ethics are the product of evolution, where else could they have come from? I believe that to be a self-evident truth. Darwin is the only true universal source of a moral code, one that applies equally to an alien you know nothing about. And that's important, because it should apply to everything. If it's right, it's got to be right for everything. If it's wrong, if it's right for us and wrong for somebody else, then there's just an opinion. That's a homocentric code, which is devised through our fears and cravings rather than being irrational and trying to be objective. And the reason for that is because there are two paths, as I explained. One is pure gravity and the other one is alienated gravity. And no matter where life evolves and it becomes conscious and then it becomes intelligent, it would have walked exactly the same path as you and I have. And we share, therefore, if we walk the same path, we share the same logical sequence, and that makes our paths exactly the same, and therefore the code the same. A visual understanding of the two, I think, is very important. So please take a moment and think about what I've put in here and see if you agree. This is what I would consider to be perfect gravity, where every card has been sorted out according to suit and numbers and placed there. That would be, if you give a gravitational congregation enough time, it will organize all of the molecules according to their mass in a perfect strata. This is chaotic gravity, where all atoms, molecules, etc. are just thrown in together, like the surface of the Earth, if you like. If you take away DNA out of the equation, then on the whole, this is what you will find: the atoms and molecules scattered all over the place. Life is that, and this is important because life sustains itself with an unnatural scaffold of energy, which gravity hates. Gravity constantly tries to get rid of this energy imbalance, because if you understand anything about gravity, gravity tries to normalize everything to make it that, like stack of cards. So this is an incredibly high energy status that is totally against what gravity wants. So this is, say, for example, you and me. If we were to die now, this is what would happen. The collapse begins, and unfortunately there is no way of holding it back because they're all interconnected layers, and if one fails, they must all fail. And that's why I said to you before that the experiment with the primordial soup is a nonsense, because even if you take a dead body and no matter what you do to it, try to be Dr. Frankenstein, nothing will happen. So it's not that easy. Life is not easy at all. And of course, once the collapse has begun, it will eventually be all the atoms and molecules will dissipate, and it turns again into chaotic gravity. So this is important. Please take a time and see if you agree. The path of evolution, or complexation, or alienated gravity, or alienation, it doesn't, to me, they're all exactly the same, because gravity doesn't complex anything. It just, a cauldron keeps going round and round in a fractal way, repeating the same pattern of expansion, contraction, expansion, and contraction. So there is no complexity in gravity, just fractalization. But there is complexity. Complexity comes, and evolution comes from the alienated path. And again, I'll try and explain this, just see if you agree. We have the hydrogen atom, 4 of those make 1 helium. And that's the thing, 4 is still 1. 1 and 1. If it was just pure gravity, the 4 hydrogen atoms would add up to 4. But because of fusion, alienation has occurred, and it has become a single unit, an entity all by itself. And so, as I've shown you in the previous video, from this fusion and the congregation of further hydrogen atoms, because remember they're just different congregations, spatial congregation of hydrogen atoms still. A neutron is just a modified proton. So we have still protons here, electrons there, more protons here, electrons there. So essentially every atom is nothing other than just a bigger hydrogen atom. So first we have atomic speciation, and then we have what I would call a molecular speciation or compound speciation, and I'm using the example that is most pertinent to us because these are the bases that define DNA, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. And as you can see, this also becomes a Serengeti. In other words, they become species of compounds, every single one of them in relation to one another, prey or predator, because of the electron slope. So it's still the same. Look closer. This is a molecular structure of thymine and C5H6N2O2 there. If I asked you the question, what is the population of this congregation here? What would you say? Is it 5 plus 6, 11 plus 4, 15? Is that what you think? Wrong. It is 1. It is a single base, thymine. Again, it would be more than 1 if it was in a gravitational congregation. For example, if it was just lying around on the floor. If you had a cup of thymine and you threw it on the floor, that then becomes a gravitational congregation. It goes back to the earth and is congregated in an inert way with all the other crap that's lying around. But as a base, when it is used in DNA, it is a single unit, and it's a thymine. So that then adds up to a single one because it's still the path of alienation. And look again at this fragment of RNA. What is the population number of this congregation? And if the answer is anything more than 1, then you're wrong, because it makes a single gene again. So all of the bases add up to make a single gene. Genes cannot add up. If they do add up, then it becomes a gravitational adjunct part of DNA. They make a single protein. So you see, you keep as you go down the path of alienation, at every stage, at every layer, they add up to 1. They add up to 1 again. Proteins do not add up. If they did, they would just be a steak on your dinner plate. Proteins do not add up. They make organelles and cell machinery, enzymes and so on and so forth. So again, they add up to 1. Cells do not add up. They make organs. So if again, the path of alienation, the congregation keeps adding up to 1 in every layer, and organs do not add up, they make bodies. You see where I'm going with this? Every time the path of alienation adds up to 1. If it didn't, and of course the next stage after the bodies is bodies should not add up. Now this is quite important, because as you will see, you already should be able to see a moral code for a congregation of conscious beings, or a political moral code, if you like, for a state. That if it's gravitational, then obviously we've got it wrong, because we're going to fail. The path we have followed is path of alienation, but suddenly if we have party politics and we have hundreds of different kind of organs within the state that are fighting each other, then we have nothing but lumps of cancer fighting each other. So why should they not add up? When any event adds up, it has become gravitational again. So it's gone from alienation back to gravity, which it can't do all the time, because gravity is still there. We carry gravity like a monkey on our backs, because we have to keep polymerizing. Remember, we have to keep making copies of ourselves, and that in itself is gravitational. In professional biology, they know this event as cancer. So when a thing starts to add up, it becomes cancer again. And cancerous propagations are things like malignancy, which when cells go bananas and start making copies of themselves over and over again, that's gone gravitational again. When viruses go crazy and keep multiplying and kill the host, bacterial polymerization and so on, all of these then are the event going gravitational again. So please take some time and go back through this and see if you agree with me, because as we go along with the videos in the series, you'll see that although this process is simple, but it becomes layered, and it just loses a little bit of its obviousness. But here it's the most clear that you can see it. Anyway, if you need a more complete and systematic explanation of the points I've raised here and throughout these videos, which are by the way numbered for a reason, they're sequential, then please get this free Kindle ebook. It's called Bionomy, second in the series. It's completely free. It's to see if it might help you. I don't want anything from you. Make up your own mind if you love science, because I think there are lots and lots of problems, especially in physics, and that's why it's very difficult to anchor other science subjects in the laws of physics. And if we don't anchor them, then they really mean nothing, because we're starting the story halfway across everything. If we don't examine our lives, says Socrates, it's not a human life. Unexamined truths are just opinions, mean nothing. And if we don't challenge the establishments, because they don't like challenges, they become elitist, and they don't. They seem to think that only they can come up with truths, and have closed the doors. Not only do they not go out to look for them, but they have completely closed the doors because they are capitalist industries, money-making machines. Anyway, thanks.